Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box once the videos have rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next show. Now, I am joined by a couple of guests, so let's introduce those first and foremost. We do have Arwin and Sleeping Warrior. Good to have you both here.
Hey, Nathan.
Hello, hello.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
It's no morning anymore.
True. Can I open with an apology for yesterday? I only asked one question about 9/11 and then disappeared because I had to go somewhere. It wasn't meant to be a tangent about 9/11. It was just to gauge where that guy was from Ireland to see where he's at in the whole discussion. I didn't mean for it to be a massive tangent, so I apologise.
I don't apologise because it got onto the fundamental point about Building 7. You know, how many buildings in history have collapsed just through a fire when they're steel in structure? And the guy, Natsec, not the Irish guy, asserted that, oh, that's perfectly normal. And then it's like, well, find me evidence of that actually happening ever. And Arwin piped up and said, well, the Empire State was ablaze, you know, almost entirely ablaze, and it's still standing. So where's the evidence of other buildings that have had a fire and then collapsed when they're steel-structured buildings? And the answer, in reality, is there is no evidence. It's never happened before. That's the only example.
There are numerous examples of steel-structured buildings that have had horrendous fires and have never once fell. There are only 3 buildings in all of history that have been totally damaged by fire that are steel-structured buildings. One of them is the North Tower, the second one's the South Tower, and Building 7 is the third. No other building in history has ever collapsed as a result of any kind of fire, And that's the reason why, and you are absolutely right. I was listening to it in the car on my way to where I was going, and you kept asking him over and over and over again for his evidence, for his citation, for his assertion that, the metal will sag and all this nonsense. And you were very specific and very precise. And it sounded like he did have something, but it wasn't relevant to the point that you were asking him about. And I was jeering you on, saying, go on, kick him, kick him, kick him. And in the end, he went. And I was sat there, and it was brilliant. So that was excellent moderation yesterday, Nathan. And anybody that says otherwise has no idea about the concept of how important evidence actually is. So that was great yesterday. But so I apologize for for doing that yesterday. I didn't mean to create a huge tangent.
No worries. I mean, there may be people listening to this broadcast that have been, vaguely drawn towards Flat Earth and want to hear some Flat Earth related information. But ultimately speaking, there are certain parts of the conspiratorial realm, one of which is 9/11, which now, several years on from when it actually occurred, is glaringly obvious that we're all bloody lied to. And there are certain people out there who will defend that lie till they're blue in the face.
Arwin, do you have anything specific to talk about today? Because I've got a few things I want to mention if you don't want to speak.
There was one thing. It's just, I also posted that in Skype, by the way, directly in our personal link, Nathan. It's just this one comment of Rumpus, and it's really odd because Rumpus, I don't think he ever really comments on anything I say ever, and he just wrote this huge text all of a sudden in the comment section of yesterday's debate, and I was just astounded by this. Can I quote this?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, well, he said, Arwin, if there was a prize for being the most moronic moron, you would win it. You have no understanding of anything. You think your arbitrary wishful thinking is a substitute for science. It isn't. You don't have the most basic grasp of any of the subjects on which you pontificate. There is no logic or evidence to support anything you claim. It is contradicted by reality and maths and science. You know nothing. You don't know what refraction is, yet you feel competent to claim refraction causes light to bend up, which has to be one of the most stupid things stated on the internet. You are an ignorant moron.
So Rumpus is actually denying that light bends up.
I
Yes.
guess so.
Wow.
Just look at it. But it's so big. It's like, wow.
Boom, boom.
He really got triggered by something. I'm just surprised.
Well, we're at the point where we had Philip on, and he explained in great detail that he'd modelled all of the sums, all the values into the refraction simulation to get the Earth to curve and then have light bend back around it. But he ultimately pointed out that the actual refraction, the bit that these guys want to co-opt, the bit that's normally invisible, that we've got a band with a mirror line below, he couldn't model that. The system didn't actually let that particular bit, the only actual evidence of refraction in the image, he couldn't model.
Let me talk about refraction for a sec. I've done this on my other screen and it's now going to get all this report. It's okay. Just let me know when we're good to go, Nath.
You're good to go. You're good to go.
Right, so the Rumpus has got this thing with Arwin claiming that he knows nothing about refraction, right? And do you know what? It's bugged me for absolutely ages, this. And yesterday I got into a discussion about this 7.6R, and I've had this conversation for many times with many different ball earthers, and I've come to the conclusion that they have no idea what's going on. They claim a position of superiority over me and ridicule me with the scorn that is described by Arwin in his comment from the Rumpus. But principally, the refraction argument is really quite straightforward. The 7.6R thing that's described in the Metabunk, I'll pull up the Metabunk page so you can see it, is fundamentally a huge variation on the refraction. Like 7.6R is the calculation. Now, I've mentioned it in the past many times that the... and just keep an eye on the back door, mate. I've mentioned it many times that the actual variables that are mentioned in the actual physics are these four things. There is absolute temperature against geopotential altitude, pressure, and the vertical pressure gradient and the ideal gas law in molar form. They're the variables that are mentioned in the thing that Metabunk cite. But when you look at the maths, that bears no resemblance whatsoever. And basically, he describes it as like it's basically a rough approximation, but basically it's not. It's an arc calculation. So what I've done is I've done a Rumpus-esque presentation that I'm going to take people through so that they understand what's really going on here. We have obviously a side profile of the Earth, and then R being the radius of said Earth. And then when you fraction out the R value into sixths, you end up with sixths, the way it's illustrated on screen. The 7th sixth is where this bit comes from. You have one extra sixth put on top, and then there is this like an apparent radius of the Earth going round, and it's this size that is the reference for the standard refraction. Now, Mick's own words says the value of 7.6R is a rough approximation. Now, how adamant and like assertive were these guys over standard refraction explains all this, particularly the Rumpus. Yet, by its own admission, it's a rough approximation of the effect of refraction on the perceived curvature. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I've never perceived any curvature. I've only ever found it to be flat. It looks flat. It feels flat. It doesn't. There is no perceived curvature. So I don't know what he uses perceived curvature to try and make you think that there is curvature there, but there really isn't. The actual radius are whatever value you want. Doesn't matter. But a standard atmosphere bends light down slightly. Okay. He doesn't say that it bends light up and down, and it sounds like Rumpus is asserting this position vehemently against Darwin. Light bends up as well as down, not just down. I remember Rumpus doing like a 25-minute demonstration in one of the hangouts on the Isle of Man thing, and he went for 25 minutes and never once mentioned that light bends up, but soundly shows that light does indeed bend up as well as down, not just down. However, in his wording, he makes it basically he kind of distances himself from committing to this this refraction thing being like a scientific law. He distances himself. Hang on a sec. Someone's not.
Brief interlude while Anthony disciplines his pooch. Times like these, I do need the girl from Ipanema.
Yeah, all this refraction stuff, like just the sheer volume of the formulas and the complexities to just get it to bend around the curve. It's tiresome.
So what Mick's doing here is he's basically diluting the importance of his own work. Lewis?
Hello, Lewis. How you doing?
Great. How are you? Can
Very well.
I be heard?
Yes.
You can.
Oh, nice. Couple things. We'll get further into Anthony's presentation here. If light were bending up, that decreases the distance it can be seen from for an observer. So that would go against the argument that you could see further over the curve because light's bending up. It has to bend down for that.
To
Yeah,
bend
we know
over
that. We
the
realise
curve,
that.
but the thing is the curve is not there.
Well, in either case, the
If
light
it was
bending, the
curved,
light
then-
bending
yeah, then
up.
it would need to bend down, but there is
In
none.
either case, your light bending up would decrease the total distance light would travel before it reached an observer. So an observer would have to be closer.
Well, that's the whole thing.
What's-
Things in the
what-
far
what is the
distance
whole-
on a flat Earth, it starts to fall down behind the slant because of refraction bending light upward. So it starts to fall down under the refraction zone, falls out of sight.
What does that?
Everything in the distance that is not high up enough for the observer to see in a straight line because it's below the refraction zone.
Perhaps I could finish what I was saying, and then you can
Yeah.
attack my point, because I've not got to the point yet, and I'm getting there, but it's to do with the arithmetic. But basically, he says that light bends down slightly, okay? Now, keyword being slightly, because when I spoke to Mick, he gave me this reference for an MIT paper, which is published in the journal Science Direct, and you can find it from the Computer and Graphics, Volume 30, 2006, from pages 994 to 1010. And it describes the effects of like refraction in standard circumstances to be negligible. And he uses the word slightly himself. So when we go back to the diagram and we see that the value of 76R, if you divide 7 by 6, you get 1.116. That works out to be 16.6% of a difference in the arithmetic. And I'm thinking to myself, well, 16% can't possibly be described as slightly or negligible. So what I've done is I've done a rumpus-esque diagram at the top to show what really we see with refraction, and I'm applying what we saw in the little Tensors Bayou experiment, that this wasn't part of the results, but we saw that the lights, not yet, we saw that the lights were we saw that the lights were all dancing above and below this line, this arbitrary line, but you could see them dancing up and down. Now that tells us that light goes up as well as down, it doesn't just go down. So I'm thinking, well, what's the value that we should apply to get a negligible variation on the light? Now, 76R gives us 16.6%. So I've arbitrarily introduced an alternative figure just to show like what can be done by changing with the maths. And if I go with 39 over 38, it gives us down to 2.6%, which is much more friendly in terms of slightly or negligible.
First of all, your numbers over on the left are wrong. You're misunderstanding that. That's not a percentage. Why would you turn that into a percentage? You had no reason to do that. And second of all, you don't just change numbers because you wanna.
When Mick West has arbitrarily done this off his own back, under his own authority. You realise that, right?
Yeah, he's correct though.
Right, so Mick West can do it because according to you he's correct, but we can't do it because according to you we're incorrect. Right, anybody can arbitrarily do anything they like with numbers. Anybody can do it.
Willy-nilly, you can do that, but it's not a percentage.
Hang on. 76R. 76 is a percentage. If you divide 7 by 6,
no, a percentage is something out of 100.
So one is the 100, and then the 1667 is
so that's 116%. If you're going to turn that
17%.
If you're going to turn that into a percentage, it would be 116, which doesn't make sense.
No,
that doesn't make sense at all.
It might not make
16%
sense to you,
difference.
but
16%
No,
more.
to anybody. It doesn't make sense to anybody.
All right, but right now I'm speaking and you're listening or meant to be, and I haven't got to it yet. The point I'm making is that 16.6% is not slightly. It isn't negligible.
Yeah,
However,
so you can know that that's not what he's talking about right off the bat from the words you just spoke.
the value of 76R is a rough approximation of the effects of refraction on the perceived curvature of the Earth. The actual radius is whatever. He's directly talking about 76R, but a standard atmosphere bends light down slightly. Well, no, it doesn't. We know that it bends light up as well as down, and it's slightly. And I agree with him, it is slightly, but his maths isn't representing slight. It's representing 16.6%. That's not slight.
Or as you think,
1/6.
100%.
1/6 is pretty significant.
Yeah.
No, that's not 1/6. That's 116%.
No, look, 7/6
I'm just saying it to highlight
Is
how gargantuanly wrong you are.
and 1/6.
Lewis,
This is grade school calculation.
I don't think you
Lewis.
understand the maths here, Lewis, seriously, because if you divide 7 by 6, which is
No,
the
I
formula,
understand that. I understand
Yeah.
that. I
How is-
understand that that's what that is.
So would you agree?
You're applying it improperly.
Would you agree or
There
disagree?
is no reason for you to be using these numbers at all.
You're
What
right.
do you mean?
Metabunk's
The-
pointless. We shouldn't use any Metabunk calculations because some
Did I
guy has
say-
arbitrarily
Nathan, did I say
decided that we should use
Were
his
those words that
calculations.
came out of my mouth, Nathan? No, those were not words that came out of
No,
my
they're
mouth.
words that are coming out of my mouth. I'm saying we should
I know. I
completely
don't know why
ignore.
they're coming out of your mouth. They have no reason to come out of your mouth.
Well,
Yeah, I can say whatever I like,
I'm trying
I
to
just
get them to
pointed
come out
this
of my
out to
mouth,
you.
but you keep derailing my point.
Yeah.
What I'm
You were going to talk about Metabunk? Were you really?
What I'm saying is he describes his maths as that light slight. That's what he's describing. The atmosphere bends light down slightly. However, when you do his maths, 16% cannot be described as slight. So what I've done instead is showed that basically I've done a bit of rumpus.
I
here.
find it interesting that nobody who argues with you, least of all Rumpus, whose presentation style you're trying to emulate, not doing a very good job, I might say, uses these numbers. Do you think maybe there's a reason that they don't use these numbers, Anthony?
Because there's already a model that puts it in for you. Would you
No,
like me to
because
show-
they use other numbers that actually work.
No, these
they
numbers don't
They use
work.
these numbers.
Yeah,
Right,
they
I
do.
see. So these numbers
No.
can be ignored because they don't work.
Yes, exactly, Nathan.
Great,
Numbers
thank you
that
for that.
don't
We'll,
work should
if
be
for future
ignored.
reference, we will refer to you when people bring up these maths and say that
All
they
right,
can
Nathan,
be
you
ignored.
can go fuck yourself, you stupid idiot.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that
Thanks
didn't
for
last very
joining,
long.
Dick Brain.
All right. So thanks for that, Lewis. Right. So he's kind of condensed my point nicely. But where I was getting to is that when we see light, we see that it bends up and down around a common point, and we saw that in Soundly's video. But my point is that the light bends up as well as down, which references this part. We see light bending up as well as down, and that's not being shown in the formula that we get given in Metabunk. We only get shown given it bending down. So we need the plus and minus to show that it bends up as well as down. But then when we deal with the 76R bit, we end up having a 16% variation on something that is described as negligible and slightly. So my position is that that's disproportionately non-significant. Like it's more than what's the word? It's more than negligible. So I've just gone for an arbitrary figure instead to see what happens if you do 39 divided by 38, and you get it down to 2.6%. So on that basis, I think 39 over 38. And I don't even mind there being an R there because it gives you a reference point that you can apply it to. They can have the R, but I really don't think that the value of 76Rs is negligible. And I think we should literally either dismiss it altogether because it's negligible, or at least use alternative. Now, he's never going to change it to 39 over 38 because he's going to say that there's no science to support it. But his own words are slightly and negligible, yet he uses 76R at 16.6%. It's ridiculous. Now, I think that 1.2 is still too high. I think it needs to be 1.1. That would be negligible, not worth the time to be able to calculate it, because negligible is so small or unimportant as to not be worth considering insignificant. But I think that we're being reasonable in saying, well, you can have 39 over 38 because that gives you 2.6. You know, it's a reasonable figure if you're going to bring it down, but 16% is just ridiculous. So on that basis, I think we should totally dismiss the Metabunk website because it doesn't give a proportionate value to refraction at 76R. It gives it massively disproportionate And scale is an important thing because we know that light distort. I mean, Ranty's been back and got that Mackled lighthouse on different occasions, and it looks virtually identical to what it was when I got it. That's negligible. Virtually identical is negligible. But this 76R is clearly not negligible, and I think that we either need to dismiss it altogether and use the Geo one instead, or tell him to change it to that, and he's never going to change it to that. But nonetheless, negligible is the key word it needs to be, and 76R is simply not negligible. It's a pity that Lewis couldn't stop, because this is the bit where he could have attacked, but he wasn't very good at that bit.
Well, he's already said that Metabunk's maths weren't worth paying attention to, so he kind of conceded the point anyway before you got to the end, so great. According to you and according to Lewis Hackett, we shouldn't be paying any attention to these particular maths figures for the nonsense curve that we don't see on a sphere Earth. But that's good to know.
And there is an alternative that doesn't do it. It's that Dizzy one, the Dizzy Gitter one. This is just literally the geography, the geometry. It's not the refraction at all. This is the one that we should use in future because it doesn't take into account I'd rather it not deal with refraction at all if it's so small or unimportant as to be not worth considering than have something that's 16%, which is ridiculous.
Which is the case when you model it on a flat plane. The refraction becomes negligible in terms of your reference to a flat plane. And ultimately speaking, in both Chris's model and Philip's model, there was no need to account for refraction at all.
Even without the refraction, we can see that the hidden height here is 332. We don't need to worry about the refraction because the effects of it are negligible when it's standard. And unless there's evidence to support it being non-standard refraction, of course, an assertion that's made without any evidence.
If you don't need to worry about the refraction, you fucking dumbasses, then why can't you see...
Yeah, bye, Lewis. There's no need to swear. There's only one rule here, and you can't abide by that because you're a complete thicko with a lack of vocabulary.
Lewis, why can't you just join without getting all potty mouth like it?
It's very annoying when we point
team.
out that their maths is nonsensical, it doesn't need to be used, and that we live on a flat plane. It annoys people like Lewis Hackett, who has a firm religious belief that he lives on a sphere. Praise Helios.
So, given that refraction has just been addressed and kind of forgotten about now, we can write that off as useless maths because it's supposed to be negligible. I got a message from somebody asking me in my YouTube inbox would I consider looking at Soundly's recent work, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's just going to be nonsense to do with Pontchartrain or whatever. And I really didn't have much of an inclination to go and do it, but I'm going to mention this because it's absolutely brilliant. What Soundly's done is he's got a drone and he's basically zoomed up into elevation and then showed the effects on the horizon of the world in which we live. Now, what happens to be brilliantly convenient for us is this. I don't know what this is. It looks like some kind of stick sticking out the ground. I don't know if it's a tide height gauge or some. I'm not sure what it is, but this thing here shows you the parallax with regard to the things that are in the distant background. Now, what I want you to notice is that whatever these buildings are, if this is negating the curvature of the Earth by zooming up in elevation, you would expect all the other buildings that are behind it to have been brought back up to it as well. You'd expect to see not just the horizon dipping, which doesn't actually happen, but you would expect buildings that are behind the curve to come back in your foreground because you negated the curve of the Earth, apparently. Watch what actually happens. And he does it quite quick, which is really good. Now, it's been stabilized by some software. And basically, he's zooming up and down. I think he's sped it up as well. And as he zooms up and down, you can interpret that to be the curvature of the Earth. I mean, it's blatantly obvious that if you're on the ball side, that's what you would perceive it as. But
but it stays still. It's just the bottom part that just falls away within the refraction zone.
Yes.
This is amazing.
Yes. Now, what I wanted to notice
is perfectly in place as it moves until it gets into the refraction zone and then it disappears. This is really awesome.
Yeah, this is really awesome because you can see the parallax of this post thing sticking up relative to the background. But look at the black band. I think this is a cloud cover or something. I'm not sure what this black band is, but look how it gets fatter as we go up. And the perception is that you're looking down the curve of the Earth. I get it. I see that interpretation.
That dark zone is probably a deeper part of the ocean, so it just looks darker.
But what we also see on the horizon, we see the band of mirroring that was previously known as dirty air that has since been changed to the obstruction previously known as curvature. And that comes from Sly Sparkane, because I asked him what was the science to explain what we see with what was used to be known as the dirty air. Now, Sly, basically, in this video that I put on my own channel, Sly says that you guys claim it's the dirty air or whatever, which from the observer would appear as an obstruction, not a reflection. It's because it's a mirage. He talks about a mirage being inverted. And he's talking about this from the observer appearing as an obstruction, not a reflection, which is, of course, what we see in that video with Soundly. We're seeing an obstruction at the horizon that appears to the observer to be obstruction, but it's actually a reflection. And that is and what we're doing is we're getting above it. So all of this hardware, this real estate, is sat in behind that layer of refraction that is what previously known as dirty air, and all you're doing is getting above it. And we see this this is why we have the floaty land on the Isle of Man footage. It's exactly what we needed. This is brilliant photography, and it's been stabilized, which is even better. Now, what gets more interesting about this is this reminded me of what, with regards to the black band, look at the black band stretching and shrinking. This reminded me of a particular video that I made myself called Tilt the Plane, which I've lost now because it was removed when I got rid of my previous channel. But it also reminds me of what Nick did at Phuket Word. Nick did a very, very similar observation on a table using straws or cocktail sticks or whatever these are. Now, you can't see it at this point. Chopsticks. Now, you can't see it at this point, but in the background, there is another table behind the white table that is, well, basically the same as the black band that you've just been looking at Soundly's video. And as he gains in elevation, watch what happens to the black band or the red table in the background. He's got a little soldier with a gun looking a bit flaccid, but he's got a soldier in the middle and he's got the red table, and he's basically going to show how this table is the same as the black band that we were just looking at. Look at the soldier in the foreground, and then as he changes his elevation, you can see, hopefully, yeah, he's gonna have to give it a couple of seconds while he backs it out. Come on. Here we go. He's going to back it out now. And then as he changes his elevation, the table that he's on, which is the black band in Soundly's video, suddenly becomes stretched exactly the way we've just seen it. It's exactly what you would expect to see in a flat plane. Can you see how the band is becoming fatter and fatter and fatter? Now the soldier in the middle is the same as what Soundly had his little stick in the middle of the ocean, and see how it's dropping relative to the horizon. It's parallaxing. This is exactly what you would expect to see on a flat plane. However, we don't have that band of dirty air or the obstruction formerly known as curvature, because you can't recreate that. But this is exactly what we're seeing in Soundly's video. But of course, all the ballers perceive it as curvature, and they want it to be curvature so much. But if it was the curvature of the Earth, then we would be seeing buildings that were previously behind the curvature of the Earth coming back into existence from behind, like a scale of mountains. If you had a load of mountains that he was looking at, it would do the same thing. We don't see that. We see that the black band goes, if I just flick back to Soundly's, which will be this one, this will be the soldier on the table, and you can see it dropping relative to the horizon and rising towards the horizon. But then you see the black band, which is effectively the red table that you've just seen, and it gets fatter. This is a flat plane. If this was curvature and it wasn't being obstructed by the obstruction formerly known as curvature, then you would expect more buildings to be being pulled back from behind the curve, and there isn't any. They're just being
I just wanted to say that, like, as it's going up, if it was actually physically curved, it's like it would turn towards you. So things further back should be moving up in relation, but they don't. They stay perfectly still. It's only the foreground, that line, that horizontal line, like before the refraction zone starts, that actually is moving. The rest is just as good as perfectly still.
I agree.
It's amazing.
So what Soundly's actually comparing here is he's showing you a flat plane, he's showing you the little soldier, and he's showing you the band of black that becomes more prominent, which is the red table in the background from Nick's video. And you can see that there are no more buildings being brought back into existence from behind the curve relative to what we're looking at in the foreground. There is no extra parallax. They're only being obstructed by the reflection on the horizon that Sly describes as an inverted mirage, an inverted inferior mirage that was previously described as curvature, which we used to call dirty air. It's exactly what Nick shows in his video. And you've got to give kudos to Soundly for doing this, because this is excellent work.
Yeah, Soundly has always produced excellent refraction videos.
Yeah. It's funny that, I mean, I've just spent like however long talking about 7/6R and referenced Soundly for refraction, and we're talking about refraction again. Obviously, these guys think refraction is bending light from behind the curvature of the Earth. In reality, refraction is literally the distortion of light for everything that we see. There ain't no curve that this light's being brought back from. What you see is the refraction, the obstruction, the mirage, the curvature claim, the blockage previously known as curvature, or the dirty air. And this is the best way of showing it. And we've got to give kudos to Soundly for doing that, because it's absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much, Soundly, for showing exactly what Nick showed, and showing that we live on a flat plane and we have a band of dirty air, mirage, or whatever on the horizon that obscures what we see. When we rise in elevation, we just alter the angle that we see things at. We just see more. We reduce the convergence at the horizon, and we're able to see stuff. So I hope that answers the guy that sent me the message asking me to address Soundly, and I said I'd do it straight up first thing in the Hangout today. He shows that the Earth's flat.
You know what? Remember what I said about a while back when Ranty was taking that footage on the beach, and I told him like, yeah, you should like have a slide so you can take pictures up and down. Well, this is literally that.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I had in mind. So thank you, Soundly, for doing that. It's awesome.
Oh, and by the way, you know the paper that I told we were talking about with regards to the refraction being described as negligible, and it's been removed. Now also the other document that we were showing about the invisibility phase that's behind, the invisible zone, where light doesn't hit the object, that's also been removed. And it's like, wonder why that would be.
Hello, everybody.
What was that? I heard something.
It was sound coming through in my speakers in the background. Unexpectedly. Yeah, so I'm now in a situation where I now have to go through I need to go and find a cached copy of that MIT paper that I referred to, that people said, well, it wasn't actually an MIT paper, and we had a discussion about who publishes what, and serve be damned, publishing be damned. That document doesn't exist online anymore. So if anybody's able to recover that document for me, I'll save me going through getting a cached copy. That would be appreciated. That's really bad.
Yeah, I was thinking like what we could even do in response to this video, as well, Soundly basically proved with his footage unintentionally how the Earth is actually flat and how the refraction seems to work in a very good demonstration. We could do a miniature model with like taking a ball or a curve, like a ball-shaped curve, a part of a ball, and then like put some paintings, perhaps buildings or something on there, and then take a camera and see how that would look, like zoomed in, and try to emulate the whole thing, how it would actually look on a globe. And I bet you, once you get the scale and everything right, you would see the things further in the distance just move up in relation to the things further closer by as you move up with the camera in relation to the ball, which you don't see in this footage Soundly made. So you know what I mean? It's like, it just, that would happen on a ball. Absolutely.
I'm just
As you move up, then things very much further into the distance would also move up in relation to the things closer by. And they don't here. It's all everything behind that slant, behind that where the refraction zone starts. It's all perfectly in proportion to each other and just stays that way. That's pretty amazing.
I noticed that John the Morgal was back live last night for his first time in months.
Hello, Sly. How you doing?
Greetings.
Good to have you.
I have a quick question, seeing that I was actually able to join the Hangout today because, well, my radiator blew, so I'm actually off work. I was just wondering, how many times have you guys been back to St. Bees?
A few, 5, 7, don't know.
5 and 7, okay. I was just wondering why nobody ever took a picture of Isle of Man from the beach.
Oh, I can help you with this one. Let me share my screen. I've just done it. Did you not see the last 5-10 minutes where we were discussing Soundly and his drone?
Did Soundly bring his drone to St. Bees?
No, but he did do an observation over water, and it showed the obstruction formerly known as curvature that you described as an inferior mirage, but an inverted inferior mirage.
Actually, the misquote that you did of mine, just like I could misquote you and say that longitude and latitude is like a condom. So,
well, correct where I misinterpreted you then. How did I get that so badly wrong? I have the citation for you. I could show it you so you could talk me through it.
Oh, I'm sure you could. And I actually made a video of that. I'm sure you probably watched it.
No, believe it or not, Sly, I don't actually watch your work anymore. Although I do appreciate and enjoy your work, I don't have actually... There's no point because I just get attacked all the time. So perhaps you could show me where I got it so badly wrong.
How do you get attacked? By me?
Well, let's just say it's hardly a friendly place to be.
Well, people who hang out on my channel actually like people to prove their stuff instead of just make claims.
So, Nathan, can you? Is this being presented?
Well, I can see your icon. You're not being presented to everyone. I'll say that though. Wait.
No, it is in the Hangout.
If you click the button at the bottom, local thumbnail.
Yeah.
I've got it on screen now.
I see you have it on screen, but it would have been presented to everybody. But anyway, go ahead.
It is being presented to everybody.
Well, you say that I've misquoted you. Perhaps you could tell me where I misquoted you, because I'm quoting your words directly. So where's the misquote? Is it the context or is it the words?
Both. Well, not the words. I know you've copied and pasted it quite a few times. But it is the context, because you like to forget the part I said in there about the vertical distance.
Yeah, that's a problem for you guys, because there's like all that vertical stuff that's shown in the video that you guys think you can see because of the curvature of the Earth and that we're high enough. And no, dude, that's not right.
No. Read my comment. Go ahead. Read my comment for me.
Which comment? Is it the one that was just previous in this Hangout?
Just previous in this Hangout?
Sorry, is it the comment that was previous in this video? Is it the one? There we go. First, the inferior mirage is the little strip at the bottom that looks like sky. This appears as a reflection. The whole area above it is reflected, vertically inverted in that small horizontal section, to include a portion of the sky above it, which is why it looks like you are seeing through it. Yep. The sky in the mirage is the same color as the sky itself.
Of course.
You want me to carry on?
Yeah, keep going.
You guys claim that it is the dirty air or whatever, which from the observer would appear as an obstruction, not a reflection. If you were looking across a flat plain, you would see the whole island, including Ramsey, from any height.
Correct.
Is that not a direct contradiction?
Keep going.
Hang on. Is it a contradiction?
It's not a contradiction.
But you've just said that it's an obstruction at the horizon in the dirty air. But then you say if you were looking across a flat plain, you would see the whole island from any height. So how would you see through the obstruction that's on the horizon that was previously called dirty air from any height?
Keep going.
Okay. Well,
because that's where you stopped, and you think that I said that curvature is refraction, and curvature is the inferior mirage, where I didn't. Keep going.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to that question in a minute because you've contradicted yourself.
You ask something like we claim this, and then you say on a flat plane it would be like that, but that's a contradictory statement.
Arwen, can I just ask you one favor, please? Until you can prove the existence of holograms, can I continue speaking to Riley, please?
Oh, wow. I need to prove to you that holograms can exist?
Well, hang on.
Where have you been the last 20 years, dude?
Show it to me, man.
Hang on.
Until then,
Why
I'd like
don't
to
you
speak with
look up
Riley.
a video on hologram technology, you dummy?
Can we just stay on,
show me
stay
where
on
that
this
technology
point?
They
is outside.
exist. They're
Hold
already
on,
there.
Owen,
Have you ever
hold on.
seen the
Sly,
Nintendo
hold
3D?
on.
That's a
Hold
hologram.
on. This is
Alwyn,
going to get...
don't call him a dummy. Let's talk
Let's-
properly.
That's not a hologram.
Stay
Oh
respectable,
no, that's
one
not
at
a
a time.
hologram.
No.
We've
not.
moved
It's
on
an
to
illusion, it's
holograms,
not
and we're
real.
talking about this refraction zone at the horizon, which obscures
you.
our view.
Thank you.
Sly, I can show you a
No. Continuing on. Go back.
Well,
Don't let Arwen take this off.
Let me just show you a hologram for a minute. A Mako Lighthouse is supposed to be a hologram according to your model.
Who
There's
says
a
it's a
hologram.
hologram? Who says it's a hologram?
Everybody
Everybody says it's a hologram.
who
not there.
who doesn't say it's a hologram.
Well, no, let me detail that for Sly. So we physically can't see it. It isn't physically there. There is, according to your model, a curve blocking the view, correct?
I don't have.
What do you mean,
the measurements on that
do you
one
not
right now.
know your own mathematics, Sly? I'll say it one more time. There is a curve blocking the view of the lighthouse. It is not physically visible on a sphere 24,900 miles in circumference. To put it succinctly, it is not there.
What I've done for Sly,
You done?
I've took the privilege of giving you the figures. Now, if you trust me that with regard to the accuracy of the figures, then we're good to go.
That's going to be a wide leap, but okay.
But believe me, we've spent many occasions talking about this with other people, and I've put you in at the value that is currently the accepted value, unless there's evidence to the contrary.
Okay.
However, the refracted hidden is 175 feet. That puts the horizon basically about there.
Okay.
So all of this stuff is loomed up from behind the curvature of the Earth.
Okay.
And we laugh at you guys and say that this is mirage, hologram, whatever this is not real on your model. So when you ask for evidence of a hologram from Arwen, this is the evidence according to your model. Here is your hologram.
Okay.
Point conceded, or do you dispute that?
What point should I concede? You're obviously, if it's supposed to be obstructed by curvature, then there must be a reason why we can see it. Correct?
So
Correct.
is that a holographic effect or not?
By definition, no.
So what would you call it?
Do you understand what holographic
Hold on, Owen.
is?
What would you like to call it?
Hold on. Let me go through the definition here. HOLOGRAM.
No. What would you like to
Hologram.
call this
Hologram. Hold
lighthouse
on,
that
let's
is
get it
behind the
down.
curve? What would you like to
Well,
call that effect? If you don't
asked
like
me plenty of
holograms,
times if
Sly,
it was a hologram. Hey, you asked me plenty of times if it's a hologram. Okay, a hologram by definition is a three-dimensional image formed by the interference of light beams and lasers and other coherent light sources. So,
Right. So this
to
is
that definition, I'm going to say no, it's not a hologram.
what would you like to call it? What would you like to call this thing that we cannot see on your model?
I call it refraction.
Great.
Sorry, refraction is an effect that is bringing the light back from behind the curve of the Earth. What is the
Yes.
lighthouse?
Excuse me?
What is the lighthouse? What is it? It's not physically there. It's not a refraction. It's something
Right,
that's
but it's also
physically not there.
created by lasers in a three-dimensional space. So, really,
What would
let's
you
call
like
what
to
it
call
is,
it?
refraction.
Would you like to call it a refraction, would you? Even though refraction's a mathematical calculation for things that are bending light.
Doesn't have to be mathematical if you can find it.
So
Right,
can
what
I
would
ask
you like to call
I
this
think you
lighthouse?
got the
This thing
definition
isn't
wrong of
there,
a
and I want to
hologram.
know what Sly calls it. I call it a hologram. You call it, or Rumpus calls it looming. I want to know the word that you want to call it. If you want to call it a mirage, that's fine, but I want to know what you term it.
I would actually appreciate it. One of you was talking and not both of you because I didn't catch a word of what was just said.
Well, I'll say it a third time. What do you want to call the effect of
Well,
this
you can
lighthouse
actually say
being
it the
there?
first time because Arwen was speaking over you. I didn't hear it.
Okay, I'll say it again. This lighthouse isn't physically there. You can't actually see it on your model. It doesn't appear. It's blocked by the curve of the Earth. Now, I want to know what you call a lighthouse that isn't physically there and cannot be seen, but is seen. What do you call it?
Visible due to refraction.
Right.
Right.
So that means visible due to means it's not physically there, right?
If you want to say I could put a pole to it, yes, yeah, I guess you could say that.
Great. So what we're seeing here is effectively a mirage.
Yes.
Great.
Right, a
So
mirage. Right, so it's not bloody there, and you're going to tell me you can do maths on things that aren't there, are you?
Well, hang on. What kind of mirage is it? I haven't seen any definitions of mirages that bend things from behind the curve of the earth. I mean, I've seen a superior mirage. I've seen a
Oh, you
Fata
haven't?
Morgana.
You haven't? Oh, well, by all means. Hold on a second.
Just give us the key phrase. I mean, I'm not seeing this science.
I'll give it to you. Hold on a second here. Something that you guys also don't watch. Hold on a second. Where is this? Okay, there it is. If you give me 1 second, I just got to pull it up. I wasn't prepared to actually show this to you, but we're good.
Well, you did ask Arwin for evidence of a mirage, so we're kind of
No,
evidence of a hologram.
Yeah, I asked for evidence of holograms, not mirage. Don't mix the two; they're not the same.
So we just want to know. Well, we think that
You
you
didn't ask
guys
me
tell
for
us that
evidence, you
this
asked
is.
what it was.
Hold on a second.
You guys tell us that this is being pulled back from behind the curve of the earth. Effectively, it's not.
Okay, now before I show you this, let me just ask you one question here, Riley. When you were back doing the things with Ranty, the photos of Blackpool Tower. Now, aside from all the other things that you won't answer, but you did specifically say that you went there during that specific time of day, or excuse me, that specific time of evening, and you were waiting for exact weather conditions. So, because of what?
Sorry, this is a non sequitur point. So let's get back onto this mirage that you're going to show us. Show us your example. Show us your example of another mirage like this one.
Because of mirage is on the horizon.
Just show me a mirage that's like this one, please.
Sure, no problem. Am I able to present in this hangout?
Of course, as soon as you've got it up on screen,
No, I'm just saying, I know you have it set up differently so people can't cut you off, and I just want to know if
as soon as you've
using
got it
the
up,
actual controls here actually works.
Yes, you will get presented
Just
to the
present
audience.
yourself. It's the green button.
Yeah, thanks, Arwen. Appreciate it. All right, so let's see here. Now, if you could present me to everyone, please. And I heard your definition of this, Arwen, on Globebusters. It was funny. But what do you call it? This is Dang Joss's video. Now, Dang Joss's video, do you have me presenting?
You are presented, yes. The audience can see you.
Okay. Now, Dang Joss put this this bottle with some putty on it behind a rounded container. Now, let me see if he shows the actual. Yeah, he shows it. Okay. He put a blue round of putty on this can, and then he put a red round of putty on this can. Then he went back and he aligned the camera so you could not see the red putty. Okay. Hold on. He zooms in here. Hold on. Okay. Now, okay, you could probably see the break between the two, but you can't see the actual red putty. Do you agree?
I'm with you so far.
Okay. And then what he did was he basically poured a liquid that was going to evaporate quickly as to intensify the density of the air at the container. Okay, now I'll just let this play. Hold on. Turn the sound off here because you guys can't hear it anyway. Dum, 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 dum. Now, what he uses for this evaporation process is liquid butane. Okay, and all he's doing, the only reason why he uses a liquid that evaporates quickly is so that it increases the density of the air at the surface. Okay, now you see the red and even the yellow pulled up from behind the curvature without moving the bottle at all. Okay, there's no moving of the bottle, there's no raising of anything. Okay, all he's doing is pouring an evaporating liquid onto a curved surface.
That is non-standard refraction.
Hold on, let him get to the end.
Okay, that was basically it. That's all I needed to show you was that due to densities of whatever reason, okay, and what I mean by whatever reason is either you can get an inferior mirage or a superior mirage. It depends on what's going on actually at the surface. And across a flat plane, you cannot get this effect.
Okay, can I just ask a quick question then? Do you understand that the entire Isle of Man is a mirage, not just the bottom section?
The entire island?
Correct. Do you understand that? Yes or no?
I don't have the numbers, so I'm going to say no. I don't understand that the entire island is a mirage.
Okay, that's good to know. The entire island, Sly Sparkane, is a mirage. None of it is. Hold on. None of it is where it should be because it's going over an ever-increasing curve. So the fact that it represents itself in scale as though it was on a flat plane, assuming that we believe we live on a sphere, is kind of a bit of a problem. The way you get around that problem is by having slightly looming non-standard refraction affecting the entire island, bringing it back up in its entirety at varying distances from beyond the curve.
Can I add something?
Well,
Hold on, Sly.
let me
I just want to get
respond
Sly
Let me
to
respond.
acknowledge. Hold on. I want an acknowledgement that Sly now understands or needs further explanation about the entire island being a mirage. Do you understand that now, or do you need a further explanation?
Don't need a further explanation.
Do you understand it?
I understand what you said.
So do you concede now that it is a mirage, the entire island, not just the bottom little section that you can distort with a bit of butane?
I'm going to say lack of evidence.
Not lack of evidence, a mathematical fact based on the fact that you think the island is curving around a sphere. That's a mathematical and geometric fact that you can't get around with butane. The fact of the matter is the entire island is, by definition, a mirage according to your model.
Oh, you're done now.
Well, not until I get a concession that you understand it. If you don't, sod off, go and understand your model better, because you don't deserve to be here.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Do you concede that it's a mirage or not?
When you give me
It's not funny to
comparative
me.
photos from the-
Let's just make this clear. I don't find this in the slightest bit funny. You are here to tell us that we're on a sphere by some crappy video of some guy pouring butane and affecting the bottom 2 millimeters of some plasticine. What I asked you to do was go and find me an effect of a mirage that is presumably going to be similar to the effect of the entire bloody island being a mirage, which it is in your model. If you don't understand that, you are clearly dense and don't belong to be here, Sly.
God, you really don't like people to answer you, do you?
No, I don't like dense people that don't understand their own bullshit.
Well, shouldn't you kick yourself off for swearing?
Do you understand that the entire island is a mirage?
Do you understand that the entire island is less than 0.5 degrees of the horizon? Okay, so you sitting here telling me that a small inkling of this red putty becoming visible is irrelevant to the subject is crap. The reason why it's crap is because of the fact that that is representing almost the exact same amount of visibility of the Isle of Man from St. Bees. I told you that what is missing is further evidence, and the further evidence is taking a picture from the beach, which you guys will not do.
Right, and you won't concede.
That is the question, is why will you not do that?
Why is it not the case that the butane affects the top section, which in your model is also a refraction that is being
100%.
loomed from
100%.
further and further beyond the curve, which geometrically and factually in your model it is?
No.
Yeah.
So hold
else
on.
are you
So
looking for me to
Rumpus.
say?
So let's just hear from Rumpus. Are you saying that Snaefell is not further round the curve than the things in the near foreground?
Correct.
It's not further round the curve.
Correct.
All right. I'd love to hear this explanation.
Sorry, when you say further on, yes, sorry. Yes, sorry, it is. Yes, I.
Right. So it is further round the curve.
Yes, I thought you were going to ask about refraction.
No, you stupid idiot. My question
You're an
is
idiot.
phrased very carefully.
Yeah,
This
okay,
stuff
no,
is
you're wrong.
further round the curve, Rumpus, you blithering idiot. Try and pay attention to the question. Do you understand the question, Rumpus? Because it seems to me like you're an idiot that has just obfuscated my question and deliberately answered incorrectly.
Well, I thought you were talking about refraction. I only caught the start of it because I would have had to put my headphones on.
Well, then keep your mouth shut till you understand what's going on.
I understand perfectly what's going on.
No, you don't. You just gave the wrong answer, you
understand
blithering
perfectly.
idiots. You don't understand anything. You just confessed that you didn't understand what was going on because you came late to the conversation. So you're clearly a moron. You clearly don't understand anything that's going on. What the hell are you doing here? We've got Sly Sparkane who doesn't understand his own model, doesn't understand that the entire island's a bloody mirage, and we've got you coming around saying, no, it's not going further around the curve. Oh, actually, it is going further around the curve. I've just come late to the conversation because I'm an idiot.
Changes as you go up. There's
Hey, Rumpus.
more refraction near the surface of the horizon.
I'm not
than there
talking
is
about
across the
refraction
island.
yet. Rumpus, I'm talking about the geometry of Earth, not
Rumpus.
refraction. We haven't
Rumpus.
got to that yet.
Rumpus,
Yeah.
This you'll have to excuse me. This is what Nathan
Hey,
sounds
Dawn,
like.
how you
I
doing?
just showed him that how this
Can I
works.
just remind you,
Hey,
there is
Dawn.
a little
Hey,
Yeah,
Dawn.
Sly, you know
By the way,
what?
it's called
It's not the
looming.
same
Sly,
thing.
Sly, it's
Your
called looming.
tank thingy
Sly,
here.
Sly, it's called looming.
Can I,
You shouldn't use the word
please
mirage.
spend
It's
some time? It
looming.
would be nice.
It's looming.
Okay, let's hear all about it. Let's hear all about how it's looming, how it's not physically
looming.
there,
Sly, I
but
don't know
being bent
quite
by
why
light
Sly
around a
didn't use the
curve
term
that we
looming,
don't
but that's
see
what
by
it is.
rumpus.
It's looming.
Nathan, am I gonna get a chance
And
to
it's
maybe talk
looming.
sometime?
And it looms more at the horizon because that's where the extra refraction occurs. When you keep on saying that the whole island is a mirage, which it isn't, of course, it's just loomed, the looming occurs more. There's more looming occurring at the horizon than there is at the top. So by the time you get, if you looked at my presentation, you'd have seen that I described how refraction increases with the elevation angle. So
is the mountain specifically where it's supposed to be, yes or no? It's not physically where it's located, is it, Rumpus?
I missed that. Say again.
It's not physically where it is located on the sphere of the Earth, is it?
It is located where it is.
No, you've just said that refraction is getting less towards the top. Therefore, refraction is bending the light, and geographically it is not where it is located. Correct?
It is geographically where it is located.
No, but what you see, what we see is not physically where it is located, Rumpus.
Let me finish my sentence.
It's not stretched out in ridiculous proportions.
There is non-linear refraction going on here, which means
right. So that means it's not where it's physically located. We have refraction changing the location as we observe it. As we observe it, it is not in the physical location that it is supposed to be, because we do not have straight lines of sight. Do we have straight lines of sight, Rumpus? Do we have a straight line of sight? Yes or no?
To the top of that Snæfell, it probably is close to straight. Towards the bottom of the horizon,
as close to straight is not straight, is it?
Okay, then. If you don't seem to understand the world.
I understand that you won't answer my question. These things are physically not where they are supposed to be. They have a refraction effect, changing the appearance of their location. That is a fact on your model that you don't want to admit.
You're wording right, Nathan. Yes, it appears to be in a slightly different place than it would be if there was no refraction.
Thank you, Rumpus.
Yes.
Thank you for conceding that none of this bloody stuff is where it's supposed to be, therefore a mirage.
You said it was geographically in a different position. It isn't. But are you denying the existence of refraction?
No, he is not.
It's all a mirage, Google.
Saying,
basically, Rumpus has just confessed that this stuff is physically not where it's supposed to be. It is being moved in its location. As far as we can tell, it is not in where it's supposed to be.
Light does not travel in straight lines in the atmosphere.
No, Rumpus, I'm getting you to concede that none of this bloody stuff is where it's supposed to be, and the entire island is, by definition, a mirage. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like... Oh, you like to call it looming. Oh, don't you just? Oh, it's all looming. Looming being another word for being a bloody mirage. Looming meaning it's being lifted from where it actually is to where it's seen.
Mirage by definition is inverted. Mirage by definition
it's not.
Is inverted.
I think your records got stuck.
Looming is a much more subtle process. It's not mirage. It's looming, and it's a very
whatever.
small...
Looming means it's physically not located where we see it. That's what you mean by looming, doesn't it?
Do you accept that light bends in the atmosphere?
Why don't you ever answer a question? By looming, do you mean it is physically not located where we see it, yes or no?
It is physically located where it is because you're not changing the physical location. It's where it appears to be. You get
so where it appears to be is not where it's physically located. It appears to be somewhere else.
That's correct. You've got it right at last.
Right. So none of this stuff is where it's supposed to be in your model.
Only at the bottom of the horizon is there more looming than there is at the top.
So there's looming at the top and there's looming at the bottom. So none of this stuff, as I keep asserting correctly, is where it's supposed to be.
I missed the start of your question.
It's not a question, it's a statement of fact on the geocentric bullshit model. None of this stuff is where it's supposed to be. That's a fact in your model.
It's probably almost exactly where it should be.
No, it's physically located in a different geographical location to where we observe it. Why is it that every time I say this, Rumpus starts interrupting me? It's not physically where it's supposed to be. It's in a different geographical location. It's only being represented in a different location by necessity because you believe you live on a bloody sphere. The fact remains that we can measure it with straight lines of sight. We can measure it with simple trigonometry. That's how we can model it and have modelled it. What you guys do is account for its actual location being somewhere else with refraction, because, as I keep asserting, it is physically and geographically located somewhere other than where it appears.
We're talking about the apparent position in an image. We're not talking about the actual location. Get your wording right.
Yeah, the apparent position means it's not as its actual position.
Snaefell is probably exactly where you would expect it to be without any refraction. The bottom part near the horizon is more refracted because there's a linear increase in refraction from the bottom to the top.
Makes no difference. It's still not where it's supposed to be.
Because then the whole
saying the same thing over and over again doesn't change the facts that I've just stated.
No, it shouldn't look really strange. I tell you what, I'll draw you a
because
diagram.
you can see the whole thing, not just at the bottom. You can see things very far up.
The refracted version of it and the unrefracted, and I bet you will not be able to tell the difference.
Oh wow, so because we can't tell the difference, you're saying it's not an effect that you are accounting for, even though it's less at the top than less than at the bottom. The bottom line here, Rumpus, is the entire island is looming, according to you. The entire island's looming. That's bullshit. It's exactly where we expect it to be, and we can measure it with straight lines and simple trig. That's what we can do and have done. You guys have to have it looming. You guys have to have it being a mirage. You guys have to account for where it is because it shouldn't be there with refraction. You guys constantly use nonsense to basically account for something we don't see, because what we don't see is any curvature. There is no curvature blocking the view of the lighthouse. There's a slight amount of refraction, and it's the only bit that when the other guy came on and actually modelled it, he's the only person that accounted for the fact that he couldn't model it. He couldn't model this tiny bit of refraction at the bottom of the image. All he could do was concede that yes, you can account for this model on a straight, flat plane, and take straight lines of sight to all the observations and do simple trig to come up with the measurements. That's what he conceded.
It's only changing by a tiny bit at the bottom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All this talking through each other, this is a ridiculous waste of time. Nobody can hear what anyone is saying here.
Anybody a turn. He likes to interrupt everybody.
Yeah, but you keep on talking. It's not helping.
Every time I make the point.
He's talked more than I have.
Yeah, but you keep on talking through him, and you know it's not going to help.
You
are the guest here, Rumpus. You are the guest on Nathan's show, and you keep talking through him, and now you're
behave like a host. He should behave like a moderator.
Incredibly rude.
Yeah, Rumpus is really annoyed by all of this.
Rude.
It's quite funny though.
You shouldn't interrupt me. I have not been allowed to give more than 20 seconds of an explanation.
Yeah, well, I don't care. Once you've conceded that the whole bloody thing's looming and the whole thing's not where it's supposed to be, it's all nonsense as far as I'm concerned, Rumpus. You can go on forever. I've heard your refraction explanation. It doesn't account for up, and you seem to think that's perfectly acceptable.
I'm trying to explain to you something you might even...
Yeah, I know what you call up, Rumpus. You call up a bit less down. It's more nonsense that necessitates a curve that we don't see.
If it was actually looming and it was on a ball, you know what you would see? Really, like a looming, like a mirage being displaced upward.
Right. How far?
Right. Okay.
Erwin,
well, you know, no. I'm going to explain to you now what it would look like on a ball. Okay. And you're going to shut the hell up for a second now. You're going to shut the hell up for a freaking second, so I can tell you what looming would look like on a ball.
How far do you think it should move up? How far do you think refraction will move that whole image up?
Kick him, please, so I can respond.
I think we just see this stuff because it's there, and we don't need to move any of it anywhere. It's you guys that need to move it with refraction and looming. We don't need to move it. You guys do.
Move up due to refraction. Oh, and I want to know, how many pixels do you think that image will move up due to refraction?
None.
It's just a few.
None.
And most of those occur at the bottom, near the horizon. You've got this idea in your head that it should be jumping up by about half the size of the Snaefell. No. The top Snaefell would remain in the same position, and the horizon would move up a little bit. You don't understand the scale of what you're talking about, just like you don't understand
Rumpus, you're an ignorant moron. You're incredibly rude. You keep on talking over everyone. You never ask questions. You're one of the most arrogant, ignorant idiots I've ever met. Everything you put in that comment applies to you.
Well, No just joined and booted him.
Thank you. So can I please have just a little moment to explain what looming would actually look like on a ball? I would love to do this, okay? Really like this moment. Just being able to talk.
Anyway, we've got a new guest. Can I just say a quick hello to Lottie? Hello, Lottie. How you doing?
Okay, so what looming would actually look like on a ball is not an apparent flat surface being reflected up. What you would see is a ball with a curve. Actually, all that side would be looming up. That is what looming would look like on a ball. But it never does that because it's always stretched out into a flat plane, which is being loomed up. If it is even being loomed up, which it really isn't. It's not a ball curved thing being loomed up, which is what looming would look like if the effect would be taking place on a ball. Just to get that clear. And
yeah,
that was that.
Basically, everything's in their model curving up from further and further around the curve of the Earth and needs refraction applied to all of it because none of it's where it's supposed to be. That's the bottom line. Where it's supposed to be is perfectly represented if you measure it on a flat plane and use simple trig and straight lines. And they don't like it. And when we point out that they have to account for everything with a curve, they don't like it. Because they say, oh, it's only a slight difference. It's like it doesn't matter. There's no difference in our model. We just use straight lines and simple trig and measure where things actually appear. And what do you know? They appear there consistently. But in your model, it's slightly looming non-standard refraction. It's all looming. It's all a bloody hologram. It's all a bloody mirage. And you guys don't like us pointing this out time and time again. It's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is the true one. Well, in this instance, the simplest explanation is the flat plane observation because it makes sense. It doesn't require any refraction to be applied whatsoever to still take straight lines and do simple trig. Your maths, you need half an hour from Rumpus to simply explain how non-standard refraction needs to be applied. Then you need another half an hour from a guy like Philip to actually show the maths being applied. That's what you actually require to get it to work. We don't need any of that nonsense because it is flat. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. That's why we can take straight line measurements to the top of Snaefell, and it does work out perfectly. Yeah, Rumpus can get it just about right with his arc calculations, but it doesn't mean it is right, and it doesn't mean there's any necessity whatsoever to apply arc calculations to any of this stuff. You only have to apply arc calculations because of the curve we don't see.
Mm-hmm. And looming effects don't actually stretch out a surface that should be appearing like a ball into a flat square. That doesn't happen. That's not what looming would do. It would basically just displace the image upwards over the so-called curvature. It would not it would not stretch it up into a flat surface as the thing you're actually looking at. So that's just another little detail about that. It's not gonna there's no optics that is going to stretch a ball-like surface into a perfectly flat appearing thing. That can't work. Optics don't work like that. And that's why their formulas just won't work out, why they keep having these gaps in between. Because it doesn't work that way. Optics just don't work that way.
Yeah, from the moment Rumpus got here, he deliberately answered a question incorrectly, and when I pressed the question, he then corrected himself and claimed that he hadn't actually heard the question correctly. You know, what a dumbass. Then, he obfuscated every single point that I made with tricky answers rather than just conceding the fact that none of this stuff is where it's supposed to be. It all is further round the curve, and therefore is all being projected up to meet your eye line in perfect symmetry, and to such a scale that it can be measured. You know, this bloody arc calculation that they apply is an arc calculation to stuff that isn't actually where it's supposed to be. Yet they've got it down pegged. What a shock. It's because the Earth is flat, they all know it, and they all know how they're co-opting the maths to make it seem like it's curved when it isn't. It's a complete farce. They hate us exposing it. Rumpus joined and talked non-stop.
So Nathan, regardless of the debates that are going on, I really need to point out, you need to be a bit politer to your guests. You can't treat them like this.
I can do what the hell I like. What part of I can do whatever the hell I like don't you understand? You see this every time you join.
Let's not be so obtuse. I'm just saying that if you want this to go ahead and you want people to come in and debate...
They do anyway. I didn't invite Rumpus. He just joined of his own volition.
You need to be so rude.
I can do whatever I like.
No, I'm not disputing that, Nathan. I'm saying there's no need for it. You don't need to be so abusive and get so angry to your guests that have taken time out of their life.
Sometimes it really is, because his guests get really abusive.
I don't care.
The weird little wizard boy do it either.
So you're being rude to a guest of mine, calling them a wizard boy. Who the hell do you think you are? I make the rules here. Don't be rude to my guests. Do it again, I'll kick you out.
That's fine.
I don't mind being called a wizard boy. That's fine.
It's not really that rude. I'm not shouting at him while being angry.
I can do what I like. I'll shout at Rumpus because he's a moron and doesn't understand questions that have been stated 4 times before he joined. If he doesn't understand a question and answers it incorrectly, I'll call him a dumbass and shout at him because he is.
That would explain why your show is failing and you no longer have any people coming in here to debate.
Oh, really? So it's not the snipers that are actually kicking everyone out that's the cause of people not getting in here.
Hello, Nathan.
Hey, Dawn.
Welcome, Dawn. For the first 60 to 80 shows, Nathan, you had lots of people in here discussing it very
100
calmly.
plus people watching right now.
Yeah, that was just a Glober jack-off fest, pretty much. And by the way, there is 103, 104 people watching right now. This show is not failing at all.
I'm talking about
You're the one that is failing. Your globe is failing. With all the concerted efforts, all combined, all of you behind the background, combining forces.
Stop talking over him, Arwen.
Can I just change topics slightly? Regardless of the etiquette or whatever, I kind of do a little, and I don't mean this in a bad way, Nath, but I agree with the comment that was just made about treating the guests better, because whether you like Sly or the Rumpus or not, they do actually contribute. And I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't. It's your show, and I respect that. But I like it when Rumpus comes in because I like challenging him, and I like questioning him, and I like asking him for his evidence. And on that note, the assertion by the ballers is that refraction is causing what we see. Where's the evidence to prove that the refraction is bending down? Because we know that light bends up as well as down. And where's the evidence that proves that it is refracting light down behind the curve of the Earth? Because if you can't produce the evidence to prove that causation, then it's evidence without it's an assertion based on zero evidence and can be dismissed with zero evidence, equally as strong as you can assert it. Because if you can't prove it, then it's just nonsense. And that is the point. If you can't prove causation, you would lose in a real fight. And with regards to Sly, if you're still listening, I wanted to ask you just 2 quick questions. One was, what did you say the substance was? I think you said liquid butane. I wanted to know what was the temperature in the liquid butane that was being poured, because I wanted to know what the difference between the 2 temperatures would be. Whatever minus Celsius degrees it was compared to the atmospheric temperature at the time would give you a massive variance between the 2. Do we ever see that in terrestrial observations where refraction is claimed to be? Do we ever see that difference in that much of a difference in temperature? And of course, we also see temperature variances going up, not just down. So that would make the light bend up. So again, I wanted to ask them 2 questions, but don't matter. He's gone. I'm sure we'll catch up again at some point.
I
kind of agree.
I believe the Rumpus was right.
I was just saying that I kind of agree with Anthony that it would probably be a little bit more effective if Nathan was able to keep his cool a little bit more. Although he doesn't have to, because, hey, this is his show. He's king. He's the one that's actually doing all the work, keeping it going and everything. And he's doing a great job. And I totally respect him for it. But, yeah, being angry all the time. The problem with getting angry is that the Globers will just get angry in response, and then everybody will be talking over each other, and nobody will be hearing anything.
There is also a young child in the room.
Yeah, there's no problem with getting angry. It's when you're the moderator, you should rein it in. You should try and be as impartial as possible. And it
No,
You guys
no,
have
that-
all
no,
claimed that
that's
you're
an
going to boycott
opinion
my
on
show
how
and
to
shut it
manage
down.
things.
Sorry, let me just get this in, Arwin. You guys, the guys that you're saying I should be respectful to, are the guys all in Discord talking about shutting down my show, correct?
No.
Who now?
Not
I'm
me.
talking about Sly and
No.
Rumpus. They're not the people that do that, Nathan. So you're wrong. No, they don't do that.
No, actually, Nathan's quite correct. That is
No,
exactly what they're
no,
talking.
you don't know what you're talking about.
I've
I've
been in
heard you talking
Discord,
about
I've
trying to
seen it
shut the show
happen,
down.
I've had messages sent to me on email, I've got proof of it, and I've had proof up of it
That's
on
not
this
Sly
show.
or Rumpus, is it?
Right, there are guys on Discord talking about it being a sphere, as are all the other people in that Discord group.
But there's a Discord.
Rumpus has been on that Discord
Talking
group.
about it being a
Hold on,
sphere.
why are you all talking over me? Let's just shut you all up and say I have been in that Discord group. I know exactly what happens in there. Rumpus is a part of that group. We have heard him talk extensively on that group.
Yeah, so just because he's in the Discord, Nathan, and other members of a Discord that has several hundred members talk about doing something, it doesn't make him part of that, Nathan. You
Yeah,
understand,
he is
right?
specifically a part of that, and he is also part of the boycott. Very specifically him.
Well, clearly he's not a part of the
No,
podcast because he's
not
just
really.
joined your show, Nathan.
Why do you think he was sniped?
I have no idea why he was sniped, and I don't care. My point is that I have no respect for any of you, and I will treat you exactly as I see fit. If you're going to tell me that you're going to boycott my show, and Rumpus, if he comes on and just continually talks over me and obfuscates my points, then I will shout at him. Make no mistake. If he comes back, I will treat him exactly as I see fit. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't have to join. That's what I said when he decided to boycott. If you don't like how I treat you, vote with your feet and sod off. But I will
I'm
treat
okay
Rumpus
with
exactly
shouting.
as I see fit.
No, Nathan, you're misunderstanding. I really, really like how you treat people. I do. It's fantastic for us.
Excellent.
But I'm just saying, for you, it'd be better if you didn't.
It's what, sorry?
Well,
Yeah.
If you didn't.
can I just state my position?
What do you mean
I think
better?
that-
What part of what I have said don't you understand? If he doesn't want to join because he doesn't like me shouting at him, he doesn't have to. If he wants to join and be respectful and agree to a point that I've made, not disagree with it and then literally seconds later say, oh no, I misunderstood, literally within seconds of joining, that is going to piss me off, and it did.
The point is, you call it a debate, and then you're shouting over curvature with your little girl in the room. It's just all your guests that come on just get berated.
Yeah, but can I just?
My little
can I
girl
just make
wasn't
my-
in the room. I'll just correct you first and foremost. She is in the room now. At the time, she was not in the room. Whether or not she's in the room doesn't change my
I
attitude
hear
towards
her
people
reacting to you
who
shouting,
obfuscate
mate,
my
every day.
point, and people like you who are now talking over me. Right? Rumpus talked continually.
Yeah, he was being extremely rude. He
Well,
knew he was
yeah.
talking over you, and he deliberately continued to do it. He even halted, waited until somebody started talking again, and then on purpose started talking over it again. He was being a total dickhead.
Can I just also say that even though I don't really agree with the way that they get treated initially, I totally understand it, because the way that we get treated behind the scenes in Discord and places like that is so way below what we treat you guys. Even when Nathan's triggered, it's way worse than what we do.
Okay, Sleeping Warrior, let me explain something to you. The Slice Arcane and the Rumpus are not a part of what you would call the troll Discord. They actually take time out to discuss you and set up presentations. So I'd even say on their behalf, don't associate them with us.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Well,
I
they
would
are.
agree.
I've
However-
just pointed out their association. You said he's part of a group with 100+ people in it. That is a group of people that he is a part of. Whether you like that or not is tough.
It's a public Discord, Nathan. Anybody's free to join. There's several hundred members. There's flat earthers that are part of that group. Are they then the same, including trolling you? No, they're just a part of a Discord, Nathan.
Right, and the people specifically who have boycotted this show are Globe believers on Discord.
Not
Because-
every one of them, Nathan. That's how
Because
me
you
and
went-
yeah, that's
Went
how
over
Rump-
Isle of Man for
Does have kind of a point there.
3 months. That's why there's a boycott, and you were treating everyone horribly.
No, it isn't.
Well,
Yes,
you don't
it
have
is.
to join, you still do, and so does the Rumpus.
So it can't be a boy. We can't be boycotting.
What is he?
our show.
Is
If
he a
we're joining,
masochist?
and-
Does he just like
We're-
abuse?
if
Are you
that's
saying
here
that...
now,
Let me
we
get this
can't-
straight. So what you're saying is, he's joined once before and felt that I was being abusive, but has decided to rejoin because he thinks I'm going to change. Right, leopards don't change their spots. That's never going to change. I will behave exactly as I've always behaved. That's just me and my personality. If he's decided to... Oh, right. So if he's decided that he wants to rejoin and is expecting something different, that's the definition of insanity. Repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different outcome. So is he insane?
Maybe he is a little bit, yes.
Oh, well, that's his problem, not mine.
I know, but I'm not pointing out his problem. I'm pointing out your problem.
Well, I'm pointing out his problem. He's clearly a masochist and just likes to come here for abuse. That entertains my audience, so that's exactly what I'll do. If he wants to be a masochist, I'll abuse him.
Yeah, but still, it would be kind of nice if...
Are you a sadist now, Nathan, or are you just the moderator of the Flat Earth debate?
I can be, yeah.
I know, yeah. I know the answer. But...
He is a bit sometimes, but hey, everybody has their own character traits. But Nathan can do his show however he wants. But on the other hand, if everybody just keeps on yelling over each other, like even if Nathan does this and everybody just keeps on yelling, nobody's going to be heard. And that seems kind of like a waste.
Yeah.
So I would personally prefer, and I don't know if it's even technically possible, that if Nathan just decides, okay, I'm going to rant my thing for a moment, that he could somehow mute the others, because then at least somebody's going to be heard. Because that's the one downside, is that if everybody's going to be yelling, nobody's going to be heard.
I think the last thing I need is people joining to mute. Honestly, that's what we get already.
No, that's not what I mean. It's more like if there was some way for you to mute the rest of the panel while you do your talk without them being able to just unmute themselves, then that would be kind of nice. Would be very handy. You could manage the speaking turns a lot better that way,
right?
If that were possible.
Fair enough.
Because now it just seems like a mess.
To be fair, I also think that even if Nathan does whatever he does in his own hangout, and he's entitled to do that, if we were treated differently, i.e. better, by everybody else, and I know that you've all got issues, but fundamentally it always goes personal. There's always personal attack.
Hey, Steve, how
you
you
guys
doing?
were able to be more...
Oh. Steve's booted somebody, presumably.
Lucifer.
Lucifer,
Hey,
Mike.
how you doing?
He's probably gonna snipe us.
Can't even see the back chat, so I can't do nothing.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
What I was going to say was that if put it this way, if there was some kind of amiable conversation, then it wouldn't be personal all the time, but it always goes personal, and it always goes against me, always goes against Nathan, always goes against Arwin, and all we're trying to do is see what apply the science, get evidence to argue against for, and that's what we're doing. It rarely gets personal going the other way, but it always gets personal coming back to us.
It's because you're presenting an alternative reality.
Yeah, but why does it need to be personal?
Because you act weird and it just becomes personal. Like, no one chooses to attack you personally in the beginning.
No, but they always
At this point, you know, it's Lily, Nathan Oakley, and the Wizard Boy. That's just what it is.
No, but that's not very scientific of you. You're not.
I know, but that's the
contributing to anything.
we
You're
see.
just making a mockery out of it all, and it's not helping your case. It's really not. We are actually figuring out the details, and we're working out pretty well. And all this joking around, you're just looking like a bunch of clowns that have declared victory
it's not
without actually doing anything.
As well, Alwyn. You know, you guys do the same thing. You've done nothing but slander Miles's name and Soundly's name.
No, we don't slander. We actually
you go out and prove someone wrong.
we do these things because of things they did.
Hang on.
I know you can't help it.
It's not slander.
So
Yeah, but hang
you
on.
guys have done nothing but no, Riley, wait. You guys have done nothing but slander Sly, Miles, and Soundly's name for months on end. So you can't complain that we say stuff about you when you've done equally the same.
No,
It's not slander if it's the truth.
Exactly. And I don't slander Sly. I like Sly. I like his work, and I always say that when I'm about to give.
You
Wait,
said
hang
the
on,
stock
hang on.
market knows it's flat, so
Just
that's a
let-
lie.
Just let me respond. Let me respond. I always say that I like Sly's work and I like his quality of his productions. I always say that because I do. I also say that I believe that Sly knows that the Earth's not a round ball. That's not slandering. That's stating my opinion based on what I
But you
see.
know that's not true. He would not
No,
be arguing.
I believe that Sly knows that it's not a ball.
Do you think I know it's not a ball?
So wait there. So
I don't think you know. No,
I don't think you guys know anything. I think
Warrior,
you guys
Sly
both
says he
dense.
thinks it's a ball. So
I think you guys know it's a
he's
ball.
lying. You're calling him a liar.
because he is lying.
So
All right,
that's slander.
put it this way.
You can't say we call you names and then call people liars.
Put it this
Even
way.
if they've lied,
caught him
that's
lying.
what
That's the
what
whole
liar
thing.
means. If somebody's told something that isn't true, like saying they're above sea level when they're not actually above sea level, that Chris won't be Chris. Let's boot him immediately. Or he gets rid of half the panel.
If
So-
it is Chris, you can join on Skype.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get a message from Chris before he'll join. Anyway, so I've forgotten what I was babbling about now.
Well, whilst you're remembering, let me just say this. I met Al Kay and we bought him dinner. We bought him a bacon butty. We bought him chocolate afterwards and 2 brews. Now, at the end of the day, whether that's right, wrong, or otherwise, Al was shitting himself when we first met him because he saw me coming and he was thinking, oh no. And you can laugh at me, you can say that I've misguided it, but we've got it on video. If we have to produce it, we will. But I'm hoping that Al will accept that he was shitting himself because he was.
Of course, look at you, you're 2 big goofballs. Like, of course,
Right, but the point is, we bought him dinner and we treated him well in real world. We shook his hand and we were friends. Not friends, but we were amiable, right? Now, I asked Al, would he measure the step down to that thing where Miles was and produce his evidence? Because he's got a laser-guided thing that does the trig for him immediately. It takes him 10 seconds to do it because I've seen the product that he's got. And he said he'd do it. Now, Al's in chat, or he was in chat, and I want Al to produce the evidence to show whether Miles was telling the truth or not. Now, we're waiting patiently for it, but if Al comes out with the evidence and he does what he said he was going to do, it's going to show that Miles told lies. Because Miles told lies. That's not being personal. That's telling people that that's the truth.
Well,
That
that's
is
semantics.
what Miles is not doing.
That's not the lie. He said
Okay, so you
he'd
complain about
taken a
Discord.
measurement above sea level. That's what he specifically claimed he had done. And he hadn't done that. He'd taken extrapolation. He was just very tricky with his words. And you pointed out where the lie was. He was lying about actually being above sea level when he did an extrapolation from the Ordnance Survey maths.
And he knows that he was nowhere near 40 feet above the actual water level. And that's what I was pointing out. Now, that's not being personal vendetta. That's pointing out and quoting him for his own words. And then he cries about it. Well, if he didn't tell lies or say things that weren't true, call it a lie, call it a say things that's not true, then I wouldn't point it out. However, he was also pointing out that he was at a higher elevation than what I was at, and I was further up the hill. So it's in my interest to address it, because if I didn't, I'm basically accepting that I've told a lie, because he's put himself at 40 feet above water. I had to do that. You guys don't understand that. That doesn't make it personal. I had to attack that because he's basically saying by his work that I was lying. I had to attack it. Do you get that? That's not personal.
Yeah, well said. You had to defend your honor, basically.
Well, as I say, you can't complain about people on Discord making memes about you. However you take it, it's just light-hearted fun. When you do equally the same, you do the same, Sleeping Warrior.
It isn't, because there's a difference between light-hearted, like fun memes and stuff that's intentional to try and upset people. And there's nothing light-hearted about anything I've seen in Discord.
Intentionally
As
upsetting
far
people.
as we're concerned, Riley, you're not even in Discord. As you said, you wouldn't be seen dead in there. So it's not trying to hurt you. It's just a joke between friends. Stop being so overly sensitive.
I've been into Discord, and they put me
You come in for a short while and then you left straight away.
Rocky Mike?
Hey, Rocky Mike, good to have you. Can you say a few more words?
I'm just wondering what argument is everyone in here on, because all it's been is just about Discord so far.
Well, yeah,
It's just the last 10 minutes, really.
Discord is about 100,000.
I'm just joining here around the end.
Oh, we've been talking about a lot, especially about well, how the ballers basically, according to their ball theory, have to imagine that whatever we get to see in the distance is a mirage. And there was a lot of dancing around that.
Not whatever we see in the distance.
Yes, whatever you see in the distance, all
In
that
your
land that
Isle of
is out
Man
there.
observations.
No, but that's the whole thing. Explained it
In
probably
the
hundreds of times now.
sunset
Let's
on
not
screen.
go there again.
If we talk about
That's
the
basically
sunset
what
on
we
screen,
talked about.
then you have to start talking about holograms, don't you? The
Fog
impossible
could be a
sunset.
good explanation for why stuff disappears in the distance on the flat Earth model.
The impossible sunset.
It's not
that's happening
impossible
right
at all.
now,
That
right
is
now.
actually called obstruction. It's just eventually when
Where is
things
that
get in
sun
the way,
going?
like clouds,
Look at the sun, it's
like
disappearing.
gases, like all that stuff, like dirty air, as you call it.
Sun
Then
is slowly
eventually you'll
disappearing
stop
from the
seeing
bottom up.
things over there.
Just because it's flat Earth doesn't mean it has to be perfectly flat.
True.
There can still be
Technically true, but it's not a ball of the size that
still see the
well,
sun.
the
It's
scientific community
sun's gone.
is assuming.
The sun went
Which the
behind Earth
calculations are
for
based.
some
That's not the
reason.
ball it
Dawn,
is.
why are you doing what you're doing? You're just trolling Arwen.
There's another sunset now. We can watch this one disappear behind the horizon as well.
Yeah, okay.
It's actually disappearing
So
in
this guy
the
asked us
horizon.
what we were doing because it seemed like we were just talking about Discord. And the conversation started with why I got so angry with Rumpus. And I got angry with Rumpus for one simple reason. The fact of the matter is, on the observation of the Isle of Man, as Dawn has just pointed out, there is a very severe problem for the globe. All of the things in the image aren't where they are geographically located. They are going to be curved to your vision. Therefore, represented, appearing, all these different words that Rumpus like to talk over me with, but essentially conceding the point with tricky words, which annoys me and frustrates me. Then we've got onto Discord because my reasoning is because if you guys are going to boycott this show and claim that you're going to try and shut it down and all these other bullshit things you haven't actually achieved, then I'm going to be harsh with you. Don't expect nice treatment from somebody who you say is running a bad show, according to Kanye West here.
So Nathan, that's what I mean. You're confusing people who are boycotting the show with people who are just a member of Discord. That's your problem.
Rumpus boycotted the show.
Members in Discord.
No, I'm not confusing anything. Rumpus boycotted the show. That's a fact. He boycotted it along with everyone else, and it was organised through Discord.
Lottie, I kind of remember you actually
Not
saying
really.
in chat to boycott
What do you mean,
the
not
show
really?
as well.
Sorry,
so.
let's hear Dawn. What do you mean, not
We
really?
arranged to have a boycott in the afterhang of your hangout, and then Sean Hufford tried to claim it himself. It wasn't arranged on Discord.
Right. There was a point where all of you were boycotting the show. Rumpus didn't carry on joining, did he?
It wasn't, Nathan. During that boycott, I actually took part in most of your shows. I was the only one that was here, so you're incorrect again.
Yeah. Then I broke it and come back.
That's called breaking your boycott.
For about
Right.
10 or 15 shows, Nathan, I was the one that was here regularly.
Yeah, and by that definition, Rumpus hasn't boycotted me because he joined today, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, that's horseshit,
Just breaking
and you know it.
boycott.
It's a boycott from the clever people like Paul and Paper Explanator. People that don't want to be shouted at and don't want to have stupid conversations over and over again when you're not going to listen to the answers.
All right, well, fair enough. Then Rumpus is insane if he's going to repeat the same exercise over and over again, thinking he's going to get a different result, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so Rumpus is insane, according to Dawn. Well done, Dawn.
Not insane. That was your word. I just agree.
You just said yes.
Someone agrees with you on a subject, and you're still a sarcastic a-hole. It's like there's no point. Yeah, like I agreed with you. Yes, Rumpus is probably a little bit insane, thinking he can come in here and give you complex mathematics that will make you understand that the Earth isn't flat. I agree. That's really stupid.
It is when it doesn't actually work out.
So it is when you don't understand simple addition of basic.
No,
basic
it is when it doesn't actually work out.
Multiplication, like that's what I mean. So him coming in here and giving you 2-hour-long presentations is completely futile, and I agree, he's a little bit insane.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a question on that point?
Yeah, of course. I just want to say thank you for letting me in, Sleeping Warrior, not sniping me.
Oh, if you're going to come in and argue, fight, debate, you know, that's good. But if you're going to come in and like just like mute people or snipe people,
I've never muted anyone in my life, and I've never.
Okay, this is boring. You were on a decent conversation.
Go ahead anyway, Sleeping Warrior. Sorry.
So the rumpus comes in and gives us a load of maths to help me, and in your words, to help me understand, right? But with that maths comes evidence that is like to prove that the maths is real, that what we're seeing is causing what we're looking at. For example, temperature variance and all that, the gas law in molar form, the viscosity of the atmosphere, they're the variables that are to do with the claim of refraction. But there is no evidence from the rumpus to prove that the maths that he's applying does actually apply. Now, that's a problem because it's an assertion without any evidence. And you know the rule. If you can't prove what you're saying is to be true, then we don't need any evidence to dismiss it. Now, I get the point that rumpus can't have the evidence because it wasn't produced in the first place. However, that doesn't remove the fact that the assertion of refraction doesn't get removed because there needs to be evidence to prove that the light happens to be bending down in the condition that he says.
That's because you're so incompetent that you didn't provide that information, Riley. That's the only reason. So you're trying to shift the burden of blame onto Rumpus because you wouldn't provide the information that was vital for this observation.
But the 4 pieces of information that's required along the corridor of observation, which we are in the Mackle Lighthouse, in reference to the Mackle Lighthouse, you have to have intervals every mile or two of the data that's required to be able to prove that it is refraction. And that's the four key points: the absolute temperature, the against the geopotential altitude, the pressure, the density.
Is that vital, Riley? Why didn't you provide that data?
Because you've got to do it for every mile across the tunnel that you're looking across.
Why didn't you provide some data to make it easier for us and make yourself come across a bit more clearer and not deceptive, Riley?
Because I'm not omnipotent. I can only be in one place at once.
35 foot, Riley, your original.
What I'm saying is the science behind the application of the maths is so impossible for us to get that it isn't actually practical to try and obtain it, because you've got to get the pressure, you've got to get the temperature, you've got to get the ideal gas law in molar form, and you've got to get the what's the other one? There's something else across the whole observation point, and then you can calculate the maths. But realistically speaking, nobody's ever going to get that on any observation. Yet that's what is needed to be able to show that the maths is causing that which we see. It's never going to happen, though, is it? 30 miles over water. You
have to accept nature's variable at this point and just enjoy it.
Yeah, but nature's variable bends light up as well as down, not just always down.
But that's fine. You can make other observations for that. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, but every time we do make observations...
No, but not even that. Not even that. Look, the refraction, which bends light, it doesn't make any sense that there would be a standard refraction bending light up, and that is what it does. That is really what it does. And then a non-standard refraction at the same time bending it all around the curve. It doesn't bend like that. It just bends in one direction, and it doesn't curve.
You could do a real science study of refraction bent over the whole curve.
Yeah, we saw one. We saw one. Riley showed me this.
But you need to study to do that.
You know, you can actually see it. It had graphs. It was pretty straightforward. Literally straightforward.
So if it's already been done, why
just start at a certain point?
Why are you going over it?
And then it goes on in a straight line. And even our observations show this.
I'll try and answer that for you, Dawn. You say, why do we keep going over and over and over it if that's your point? Why don't you just study it? Well, what we have is an observation that is easily represented on a flat plane. And you can draw simple straight lines and take simple measurements and simple angles to give you the distances and the altitudes correctly, accurately. No refraction whatsoever is required in that model, so it's very simple. In your model, you do require quite a significant amount of refraction in order to account for it. That's coupled.
You said this the last 2 shows. I agree.
Right.
We need refraction to explain a tiny rubbish observation that Riley's done.
We need refraction. That is the cause of it.
Yeah.
And as Anthony has just pointed out to you,
Nathan can say it how he wants. We need it. If you can put it like that if you want. So what? So move on to the next thing.
Well, no, that's a big problem. If you're going to assert that the Earth is a sphere and you need refraction, then you need to show causation. You actually need to show that that is actually causing the effect of a curve not being seen and a flat model representation of all of these things that we see in the photography being a flat plane representation that coincidentally can be measured with straight lines, because in fact we have all of these different pressure variants and temperature variants and gas variants that we can use to demonstrate unequivocally that this is the cause of the problem.
Take it to the greater science community, and hopefully one of them will be into it, and you can do something. And then us lot, we can carry on and talk about other things.
You take it to the greater... I'm doing it on a show that you guys all want to boycott and shut down, but you're saying take it to the greater science community. I'm publishing it myself.
And can I just say as well, with regards to the assertion of refraction, it requires evidence to prove that refraction is actually the case. In chat right now, we've got John Watson saying that Mark Taylor uses sock counts, and Chris MCM says, baseless assertion, you have zero evidence for that. Isn't it funny that there's zero evidence to prove refraction, yet that's accepted? But when somebody makes an accusation against one of the known trolls, that's rejected because there's no evidence for it. How is that comparable?
What about your claim, Riley?
I showed you some evidence.
The point was 30 foot with no evidence.
Yeah, because how many people go measure a cliff when they do an observation?
That's not at all true. There was evidence. The evidence was the value attributed to that location on Google. And when it was first put up as a claim by Anthony, it specifically said, this hill is 34 feet according to Google. So the evidence...
So you wasted months of our time.
So the evidence required...
We all agreed that
why are you
Google
talking
was
over
not
me?
correct.
Why are you talking over me?
I
So
thought
the
you
evidence...
stopped me,
Why are you talking over me? I haven't finished. So the evidence required to prove the assertion that according to Google this hill is 34 feet is going to Google and showing that it is 34 feet on Google. Because the claim is, according to Google, this location is 34 feet. That's the claim, and he proved it.
The claim is Google says 34 feet. And for evidence, you use Google to prove there is 34 feet. So that... Just think about what you're saying, Nathan, before you say it.
Let me give you a slightly different example then, because clearly you're thick. If you go to somebody else and say, in Safeway, a Mars bar costs 60 pence, and they say, prove it, and you take them to Safeway and it costs 60 pence, that's your proof of your assertion. What you don't do is go to a completely different store and say it's 65 pence in this store. How dare you claim that according to Safeway it's 60 pence when in Tesco it's 65 pence? That's an outrageous thing to do. That's called a straw man argument.
We don't care about the claim of Google saying it's 35 feet. We care about the evidence, Nathan, that it's 35 feet. And there was none. And that's why Riley was using Google as 34 feet, because he knew it wasn't, and he was deceiving you and us.
No.
It's not hard to understand. Yes.
No.
You knew it wasn't 34 feet or 35 feet or 38 feet or whatever amount of quoted numbers you've used, Riley. It's
all right, so
clear.
let me respond. Let me respond. You said that I knew that I was deceiving, right? From day one,
100% you knew it was not 34 feet.
No. From day one,
listen.
From day one, I said that I had no idea what height it was because I've got no experience at working at heights. And Ranty told me that unless you're used to working at heights, you'll have no idea, because when you're on top of a roof that's only 35 feet tall, i.e. a house, it feels 100 feet. It's a lot bigger. It feels bigger than what it actually is. Now, I said to Nathan, when we get there, because Nathan came up there, I said, when we get there, it is what it is. I said, you'll get a perception of whether you think it's about 35 or not.
Sorry
Nathan,
to interject.
Tell him.
Before you got there, you'd warned Nathan that it is what it is. Is that what you just said?
Say that again. Sorry, I missed the question.
So before you got to St. Bees, when you were taking Nathan there, you'd warned him that it is what it is, suggesting that it might not look like.
No, you didn't. You missed the first part. I said to Nathan before we got there, I said, you will get a perception or a gut reaction of whether you think it's 35 feet or not by looking at it. And it is what it is, whatever you think that perception is.
You're trying to preempt him because you...
Not at all. No.
He's
You're misunderstanding. Listen.
No, it's not 35 feet, Nathan. That's why
No. Stop. Just listen to what I'm saying. I said to him, you will get a perception on first glance of whether you think it'll be 35 feet or not. And whatever your perception is your own. My perception was I didn't know. And Ranty said to me, you won't know unless you've got experience of working at heights. Now, I don't know whether Nathan's got experience at working at heights or not, but perhaps if you ask Nathan, did he know whether it was 35 feet or not? Perhaps he'll give you an answer.
Nathan, when you got to that St. Bees location, what was your feelings on whether it was 30, sorry, are we using 34 feet or 35 feet or 36 feet?
Well, I mean, realistically, it makes no difference what my feelings about a particular location point are. What any normal person does when they go to somewhere like that, takes a picture and then later references how high they were. The standard thing to do is to go to Google Earth. Now, what Anthony didn't do was say, I am at 34 feet. That's not what he did. He made his claim very clear. According to Google Earth, I am at 34 feet. That's a very specific claim. In terms of what I felt about a hill, it's irrelevant. I took a tape measure because at that point we were starting to make assertions about how high we thought it was, and we haven't just guessed. We took a bloody tape measure so that we could accurately measure how high it was. Not guess, or go by Ordnance Survey, or go by Google.
That's fine. So what would you estimate the height was before you measured it, Nathan?
I didn't.
Simple question. You
I
don't
didn't
have to avoid
estimate
it.
it.
Well,
I
what
didn't.
was it again?
I didn't. I took a tape measure. I wasn't there to estimate anything.
Okay, I know, but before you, okay, so you probably didn't hear the full question, so that's why you're not understanding. Before you measured the observation point, Nathan, what was your estimate that the height would be?
You didn't hear my answer. I didn't estimate it. I measured it. I got straight on to measuring.
Now, when I first did the observation, I had no idea what the height was. And it was only when we started measuring it that I started to get a gauge. And it wasn't wildly inaccurate, plus or minus 30 meters. It was inaccurate, but it wasn't by a lot. And
Right,
at the
so,
end of the day, it didn't make any difference.
If plus or minus 30 meters means that it can be 1 inch plus or 1 inch minus or up to 30. So anything from 0.1 up to 30 meters would be in that bracket. You understand that, right? It doesn't mean that it's plus 30 meters or minus 30 meters or exact.
But do you understand that as a flat earther, your claim of working model?
Plus 2 feet, that's within the brackets there. If it's minus 2 feet, that's within the brackets.
Right, but do you understand as a flat earther, we're testing your model?
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you understand, though, that as a flat earther, we are actually testing your model to see does it do what it says it does? In other words, it doesn't matter whether it's 35 feet or not. Your model tells us that value. So it doesn't make any difference. But the point to your question was, did I have previous forethought that it was bigger than what it was? My gut reaction when I got on top of it, obviously I didn't know it at the time. It was only when I went back to the place where I was looking at it, when we stopped in the caravan, got on Google and checked the height and thought, bloody hell, it did feel like higher than that. But that was because the tide was out and it creates depth that wouldn't be there when the tide was in because we get a 9-meter tide there. So I excused it because the tide was out. Did I feel as though it was taller? Sure. That's why I asked Ranty, what did he think? And his answer to me was, unless you've got experience at working at heights, you're not going to be able to have a judgment of it because it's basically, unless you're used to working at the height of a house, which is 35 feet, coincidentally, the average house is 35 feet. It feels a lot higher than that. Go and sit on the roof of your house and measure how tall your house is, and then guess how much it is afterwards. And you think to yourself, no way, it's way taller than that.
Why would you then be adamant in using Google's estimation of the elevation when it specifically says in Google this is inaccurate up to 30 meters plus or minus? No, Nathan. No, sorry, Riley. Google tells you the elevations are inaccurate up to 30 or plus meters. So
right, but when you're only at 30 feet, you can't be plus or minus 30 meters when you're only 30 feet because 30 meters is 100 feet.
All elevation points, Nathan. So sorry, Riley. Anything to cover bigger observation points that would be higher than 30 meters.
Right, so but do you realise that it's not my problem if your model's not as accurate as what it needs to be for it to be classed as a working model? We had Brenda. We had Brenda on a Hangout challenging somebody to show them the problems with the Google Earth. So I came on and showed her a problem with it. You guys do believe and accept that it is your working model.
No, we don't, Sleeping Warrior. You're an idiot. We've all told you, like many times, it's not the model. Stop saying it. You sound like a buffoon.
No, it is your model.
No, you can't tell me what our model is, Riley. I'm telling you now, it's
Why do
not.
you keep calling me Nathan?
It's getting confusing.
It says more about me than it does.
That's probably the biggest insult I could say.
Let's not go in that
Lots of
direction.
horrific things to you.
Well, can
Hey,
you
New
send
Year.
your model or explain your model then, please?
Sure, I could do that. So we have a observation of the Isle of Man, which has been modelled into a program that represents that exact observation as a flat plane. When we take that particular observation and measure anything on that island with a straight line and a simple trigonometry measurement, we can work out accurately the distances and the elevations of anything on that island. That is a very small flat Earth model. Your model requires and necessitates things that are not visibly seen on your model being brought back around the curve of the Earth using bendy light and refraction to account for things that we should not see and account for things that are in the wrong place, geographically speaking, because they're being bent up and loomed up from behind the curve of the Earth. So that would be my model of a flat Earth that is not at all representative of a sphere Earth with a
No, we
curve
should not see
obscuring
it,
our
but we've
view.
always seen Isle of Man. We should see it. It's
Sorry,
within
Dawn?
the model is seeing it.
Yeah, so
According
did
to
you
the
want me to repeat what I've
curvature
just said, Dawn?
calculations,
Did you not
shouldn't.
understand what I just said?
If refraction wasn't a thing, maybe you wouldn't see all of it.
So refraction isn't needed in the flat model. We can still take straight lines in the
That
way
doesn't prove the model correct, does it? Just because you don't use
No,
refraction.
I'm not saying it is correct, Dawn. I'm saying at the end of this, the audience has a choice. They have a choice to accept that light is bending things that are physically obscured and cannot be seen.
So you're giving them a choice between the accepted observable reality and something that you are into.
Let's ask you the same question. What's your model?
No, that's
your
exactly the
model?
other way around.
Hold
No,
on.
it's not, Owen. You
Hold
know.
on.
No,
That's
it
our
is.
model. That's
You
what
actually
my
see
model
it.
would be. That's what I would
Accepted
present.
observable reality
We've
is
just
the
been
globe
told-
with the
we've just
sunset.
No, that's
Perfectly
exactly
explained.
What's
the
your
observable
model?
reality is what we
What's
see.
Southern
globe
stars.
It seems to be
model, then?
flat.
Currently. Go
Can
and
I have a
look
look
into
at
them
glo-
three.
Can I have a look at the globe model then, Dawn? What's your
Three
model?
S's.
What's your model?
My model is what we see, observable reality.
No,
All right, well
no,
then it's
that's
flat.
not.
Because that's what we have observed in the Isle of Man picture. It's a flat plane that we can measure in the same way as surveyors measure and build things, with straight lines and simple trig. That's how surveyors actually build things. That's how actual reality works. That's how buildings get put together. So our model represents the Isle of Man observation in exactly
The
that
model
way.
that can't explain sunsets unless you make up woo-woo.
Oh, I
can't
see. So we're on to sunsets. While I'm halfway through answering a guest's question about what our model is. So we've so far been told unequivocally by Dawn, in text form, for all the audience to see, that Google Earth is not their model. Well, our model is very small. It incorporates one photograph of the Isle of Man. And with that model, we can observe that light does travel in straight lines, exactly as you would expect it to. And using the same methodology as used to create the maps themselves, we have got straight lines of sight to the things we observe, and simple trigonometry used to measure their elevations and their distances. In the alternative model, there is a sphere, which has a curve, blocking our view of things we see in the picture. Therefore, from the first get-go, from the very first hurdle, the sphere model fails. It does not represent what is geographically visible in your model. Therefore, we move to number one band-aid, woohoo, standard refraction, which also fails to account for the observation. So then we move on to second level band-aid bullshit theory, non-standard refraction, which, when modelled very carefully using considerable amounts of maths and a program to represent the effects of the refraction, you can create it so that it looks like the observation. You can bend these things from behind the curve, woohoo, with a lot of software and a great program and lots of input of maths. It doesn't change the fact that our model equivalent of the exact same observation is done with straight lines like surveyors use, is done with simple angles like surveyors use, and is done with simple trigonometry, like surveyors use in actual reality, Dawn, unlike the bullshit reality of the sphere, which needs and necessitates things that are not visible being brought back from
Is
behind
my mic
the
back
curve
on
of the
yet?
Earth.
Have you turned me up again?
Sorry?
Have you turned me up again now? So you're giving the audience an honest choice between your model of Isle of Man, which works with light and straight lines, or the acceptable reality of science and obstruction they can see with their own eyes, soundly, the southern stars, sunsets. And you're giving them an honest choice to choose the Isle of Man model instead, made on
Choose whatever
Blender
you
by
like.
Paul
I can't
Christmas.
bend your arm in the same way Dawn can't stop me from shouting at Rumpus. You can choose whatever you like. That's freedom of choice. That's what we have as a God-given right to us. We get the right to choose whatever we
Only
choose.
insane people are going to choose your option.
You can choose whatever you like, sane or insane. Your choice is yours.
I chose before you ever came.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
we know that.
So
We know you
good for you.
choose to accept that which you can't actually see and have to use math
No,
to
I
account
see
for.
sunset now on the screen. That's explained perfectly
No, but
on my
but
model.
the sunset
Mhm.
doesn't have
Okay.
anything to do
Of course it
with
does.
the physical Earth things we see.
Happens every night. What do you mean it doesn't have anything
have
to
you-
do
have
with
you
the
actually
physical
seen-
Earth?
It's a heavenly body. It doesn't
Let's just
relate
ask Dawn
to
another
the
question.
physical
Heavenly
Earth
bodies
observations.
relates to it very much.
No, it doesn't
Hey,
relate
Dawn.
to the physical
Yes.
Earth
Have you seen it
observations.
modelled?
It's a heavenly
It's
body.
interesting.
Okay, let's go off heavenly bodies soundly.
I don't mind heavenly bodies just for a few moments, because recently Chris Monk did show me the heliocentric system modelled. So, just out of interest, have you ever seen it with the sun turned on, with the lights on?
What?
So most time you get to see a heliocentric representation of the solar system, you see little dots going around the sun, but the light itself, the sun itself, isn't actually switched on, i.e. creating shadows on things. Have you ever seen it with the lights switched on, Dawn? This heliocentric model that you think works?
No, I think I know the monk thing you're on about, though, where he shows the shadows moving.
That's not what I asked. You seem to have struggles keeping up with a simple question, Dawn. Have you ever seen the heliocentric model with the lights switched on?
I've never seen someone demonstrate shadows that shouldn't be working like that before now.
All right, that's very interesting.
No.
That's obviously something we should address, because you seem to think that your model works when it comes to the sun. Well, I will be happily correcting you shortly with hopefully the help of Chris Monk.
Jesus.
Sunsets are explained perfectly by science. on the globe
Sunsets
model.
aren't a model,
There is
so
no-
we're
there's
talking
no
about
ex-
models, Dawn. Obviously, it's clear that you can't keep up with the conversation. You've moved on to single celestial observations of sunsets, where we were talking about specifically about models. How our model works and represents the photograph of the Isle of Man, or the composite image of a video of the Isle of Man, perfectly, with straight lines and angles. Is that you,
Hello.
Steve?
I would just like to say that a model encompasses everything, including the sunsets, including the moon, including all the planets around us. And if we didn't have light, we wouldn't be able to see atmospheric refraction. So there you go, really.
So would you expect it to be concise and work perfectly with a single observation from St. Bees?
No.
Oh, right. So a single observation from St. Bees completely contradicts your model, but that's perfectly normal or
No,
not normal?
that's just one observation. There are many observations which have the conclusion that the Earth is spherical.
So
and
I'm
the sun
talking
is a real
specifically
thing.
about this observation. Why does this
This is
observation
one
not match?
observation.
We're not saying
Because-
the sun is not a real thing. We're just not saying it's a giant ball out there that's physically there.
I'm just going to point out again that Steve has said that he's got a model that works for everything, that everything works in their model, and then immediately I've pointed out that we have a photograph that doesn't work with his model.
Another sunset going on the screen.
Arjun, you've said exactly that the sun is not a real physical body.
Yeah, but we're saying it is real. It's just not a physical object as is suggested by the heliocentric model. That is all.
Yo.
Can you Arjun, can you elaborate on it? It's not.
You can stop calling me Arwidgen. You know that's not the way my name is pronounced.
I just pronouncing it phonetically. So can you explain that?
Stop doing that. It's unnecessary.
Welcome to Cat Earth as well.
No, you're just being rude.
Thanks, Lottie. Glad to be here.
My granddad taught me to speak phonetically. He thought it was a better way to speak.
Seriously, Arwajin, how can you say that the sun is real, but it's not a physical body? Could you elaborate on that, please?
Well, there is something there. There's light there. That is real. The light is real. I'm not denying that there is light.
Didn't you say that
there is no necessity, in my theory at least, for it to be a physical object to actually create that light. It's not a lamp. It's not a ball of gas that produces this light.
So how do you know that?
The sun was a CGI projection implanted in the eyes of every human by the creator.
I said that could be a possibility. It's hard to prove, but it is among the possibilities of what could be causing this
nonsense.
Holographic.
So do you know what it is, or do you have like do you believe that it is something but you don't know?
He's just got thousands of possibilities just made up in his mind.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all, or should I say, I've been Satan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.